back to the She Shed. My name is Melissa and today we are going to be making a really gorgeous shawl. And what we will be using is, it's a box. Can you see the pattern there? This yarn comes in a box. The colour of this yarn, as you can see, it is called Baby Merino Print and it is multicolour. You can buy it at Hobium. How it looks is like that. So they come in these little teeny tiny balls and it's baby merino, basically lamb's wool. It is so super soft, gorgeous. I got the whole colour range. I've been having so much fun with making using this yarn. And so basically it's baby merino. It's 25 grams. There's 100 meters in each ball. It is fingerling weight. So what I will be doing is using 2 balls together because I want it to be thicker. Now this says it needs a 3.5 to a 4 millimeter hook, but I will be using the 2 together. So we will be using a 6.5 millimeter hook. You will need 2 boxes of this, which means it's 20 balls. So we are using 2 balls together. Okay, let's get this project started. All right, let's get to these balls and let's find the ends of both. So what I generally do is just loosen it up a bit for one, do the same with the other, put the 2 together, do your slip knot. Now I normally go up a size when I do my base chain because then it just makes it more even. I don't have a 7.5, so I'm going to use my 7, and we will be chaining 70. You have your chain of 70, change your hook, chain 1, and then turn your chain so that the lumps on the back are facing. So you'll see that there's the V on the front and you want the lump on the back because we'll be working in that. So we're going to be doing half double crochet for the whole of this garment. So yarn over, go into that loop on the back there, grab your yarn, pull it through that loop, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, go into the next loop, grab your yarn, pull it through that loop, and grab your yarn and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, into the loop, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Okay, and so you need to continue that all the way to the end of the chain. Now tip, make sure you've always got your 2 strands. Don't drop one. You'll have a little loop halfway through your work and it'll look really funny and you don't want to need to rip it apart. So just make sure you've always got your strands together. And when you finish that, I'll meet you at the end of this row. Alrighty, now finish that first row. You should have 70 stitches. At the end of the row, chain 1, turn your work, and then it's just repeating this same stitch all the way. So yarn over, we're doing half double crochets, yarn over, into the stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, into that stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. and you just keep doing this in every single stitch. Now when you get to the end of the row, you're always only chaining one. Okay, so continue this row. I will meet you at the end and just show you how to do the ends of the rows so that you have a really neat edge. We're not going to be doing any borders or anything like that. So you want to have your edge really nice and neat. So I will show you how to do that when we get to the end of the row. At the end of the row, you come to the last stitch. You see the stitch there? So you're working this last stitch the same. Go straight into that last stitch and then work it the same. And then you chain one, you turn your work, and you go straight into that first stitch. Now sometimes finding that last stitch can be a little bit difficult, but if you just look for the stitch, let me do this row and show you again at the end of this row, and then you'll be set to complete this section. Before we get to the end of the row, I had a knot. I hate knots. I think it's really appalling that there are knots in the middle of your yarn. So what we need to do is join the yarn back up. So you do this when you're joining any of your balls of yarn as well. And often with this yarn it doesn't line up. You're not going to finish both balls at the same time. So you get your yarn, new yarn, or in my case where the knot was. But first of all, you need to have a long enough leader and just yarn over, go into the next stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, leave it at that. Drop the old ball yarn like so, grab the new one in, hold it, give it obviously a little bit of tail because you've got to sew that in later, hold it with your finger, lay it across with your other yarn, yarn over. Now make sure you're holding those leaders at the back, yarn over, pull that through the rest of your half double crochet, and that's joined. Continue with your half double crochets, do a few stitches. And then I go back to where my leaders were, so there you go, and just give them a little tug so that stitch is nice and neat and even. There we go. And then at the end of your work, or as you go, it's purely up to you, you sew in the leaders. Okay, you sew in your ends. Alright, so let's continue finishing this row, and I'll show you how to do the edge again, that last stitch and that first stitch of the next row. We're at the last stitch, and sometimes you might find it easy just to pull it out, make sure it's even. Alright, now remember, yarn over, there's my stitch, there's the top of my stitch, you can see the V there, there's the bottom of my stitch, so I'm wanting to go between those two in there like so. Now you've got to make sure that you've got all your yarn threads and everything on there. Grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all three on the hook, and there's your nice neat edge. Only chain one, turn your work, and continue in that very first stitch with your half double crochets. Alright, I think you are set to go, and continue working this. It's a giant rectangle you are making, so you are going to continue working all your balls of yarn in this whole rectangle. So just keep working and working and working until you've used all your balls, making sure you have 2 balls on the go at each time, doing your 2 yarns together. And when you finish making your rectangle, I will show you what you do next. So I will see you back here with a very long rectangle. Okie dokie, so we've now finished our very long rectangle. It's a little bit too big to fit in the camera, but it's a long rectangle. Now it should measure roughly 175 centimeters, give or take your tension. And when you have finished, leave a tail long enough that it runs down the whole edge here. We are going to fold it now and sew up the side, but first of all, where you have finished, stitches come undone. So what I want to do is have a tail, leave enough yarn, and I did, and you'll notice that your balls don't line up, so I just snip the remainder off on that ball. And then on my last stitch, I'm just going to pull that straight through, and that is the tail that I am going to sew the side up with. So now what we want to do is fold our rectangle in half, like so. There, she's folded in half, and we are going to be sewing up the side far enough to leave a head hole. So this is where your head's going to be. So what I would suggest is that you keep sewing all the way along the edge here until you've left enough room for your head to comfortably fit through there. So you are going to need to try it on periodically to see if you've left enough room for your head. Okay, so let's get it all lined up and I'll show you what we do with sewing. Just wanted to show you before we started sewing that I always put a stitch marker of the side that I've sewn in all my ends on. So I make sure that all my ends are on one side of my garment, and that will end up being my back side of the garden or inside of it. And I put a stitch marker to tell me which side that is, so that it's the less neat side. So this I know is going to be the inside of this garment, so I'm going to line up the sides and I sew with the inside facing out, and then you'll turn it inside out and then that becomes the inside. Okay, so let's get it lined up and all ready to sew. So we're lined up, and here is my tail. So put that on your yarn needle. And I'm not the best sewer in the world. I actually hate sewing. And I just do real simple stitch. It's going on the inside. Theoretically, I've never been seen, so you don't have to worry about being overly super neat. So I literally just weave it over, going to the very top of my stitches, lining them up, and continue all the way down until I feel that the gap at the end is big enough for my head. So obviously this is the bottom bit down here, sewing up to the fold, leaving, which is all the way down here, and leaving a big enough hole here so that my head can fit through there. So as I said, it's nothing fancy, it is just making sure you've lined up your edge nice. Don't tug and pull it, just let it naturally sit together and just keep sewing. And you will have to try it on several times until you feel that head hole is the right size. So you're aiming for it to slip over your head nice and comfortably. not being so tight that it's going to rip your head off when you put it on or choke you when you've got it on, but just nice and comfy, but not so loose so it will fall over your shoulders or just not give you the warmth that you need. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this, and I will meet you at the end when I've got to my size, correct size for my head hole. And there we go, I'm up to, made a big enough room for my head hole. So I just need to sew in my end, so I just go back on myself and I go over and through, go back over where I sewed and through, and hopefully that knot's certain. I do it a few times. And then just snip it off. Find where that stitch marker went, because I've got to get rid of that. There we go. Take that off. Turn it inside out. And we are finished. So let me get this on my mannequin and show you what it looks like. And here it is. I am absolutely chuffed with this. It is so super soft and so lovely to wear. You can wear it multiple different ways and have a completely different look. I've made it in various different colours. Here are 3 examples, and I hope you have enjoyed making this shawl. Very simple, very easy to make, and has a beautiful effect when you wear it. Like, subscribe and share, guys, and hopefully I'll see you again in our next tutorial next time here at the She Shed. Bye everyone!